Just 60 k's from the Battle of the Somme, the worst 24 hours in Australian military history unfolded. The Battle of Fromelles was extremely devastating for Australia, and we lost 5,533 men in just 24 hours. So why doesn't Australia know and remember all the brave soldiers that we lost in this horrific battle? We know all about Gallipoli and the brave soldiers who fought there, but what about the brave soldiers in Fromelles? Why don't we remember them too? The main reason is that Fromelles was set up as a decoy to draw the German troops away from the Somme. The plan didn't end up succeeding, which resulted in the Battle of Fromelles effectively being a suicide mission for the Australian troops. We need to remember the Australians that we lost at Fromelles, and we hope this documentary will show you how much they sacrificed. Few survived the first hours of the battle, and it just got worse from there.
Nothing could exceed the bravery of those boys. The first wave went down like wheat before the reaper. When the time came for the second wave to go over, there was not a man standing of the first, yet not a lad faltered. Each glanced at his watch, and on the arranged tick of the clock leaped over. In many cases they did not get any further than the first. When it came time for the last wave, though they knew they had to do the work of three, each man was in his place.
John, Jack, Bowden was one of the thousands of men who died at the Battle of Fromelles. John grew up in South Yarra, Melbourne, and studied at the St. Paul's Cathedral Choir School. Before he enrolled in the army, John was a bank manager in South Melbourne. He was married to Jessie Bowden and enrolled in the Australian Imperial Forces on the 2nd of September 1915. He started as a private but was soon promoted to second lieutenant. He travelled to Egypt and was placed in the 46th Battalion on the 6th of March 1916. 10 days later, he was swapped to the 59th Battalion and sent to the Western Front to fight in the Battle of Fromelles. On the 19th of July 1916, John Bowden was reported missing in action.
I saw Lieutenant Bowden lying by this creek as I went over in the charge. I was about this spot for some time, lying down, waiting for the advance. I saw him crawl from the creek out to our front line trenches, and from there into the bushes again on no man's land. When last I saw him, his left leg was covered in blood, and his left arm was strapped to his side by some equipment. He looked awfully bad. I did not see or hear anything more about him. He must have crawled into the bushes and died there.
Almost a century later, an amateur historian named Lambus Inglizos developed a large interest in finding out what happened to the Australian troops at Fromelles and where they were all buried. John Jack Bowden was in fact Lambus's key to finding out where the soldiers were buried. In Jack's military files, it's speculated that he may have been buried at a place called Pheasant Wood. Peter Barton, an world-worn historian, confirmed Lambus's findings by searching through documents from the German front. Soon after these findings, an excavation at Pheasant Wood started in search for these soldiers in the mass graves. After 4 months of digging, 95 Australian soldiers were named and given a proper headstone at the new cemetery in Fromelles. This was a massive achievement because no one ever thought they would find these graves and be able to identify so many Australian soldiers.
A long-forgotten clue to the mystery of the lost soldiers of Fromelles lay undetected in Jack's army service record. When Lambus Inglizos studied the lieutenant's file, he found documentation that briefly speculated that Jack may be buried at a place called Pheasant Wood. For Lambus, it was as if Jack was whispering to him from the grave, urging Lambus to find him.
Here we are. Order 5220, dated the 21st of July 1916, so that's the day after the battle closed. And this is the order to bury men behind Pheasant Wood. And when you look through here, it tells you exactly how that's got to be done. And it says bodies were taken to Pheasant Wood, about 400 to be buried there. So this is the piece of paper which sets the entire ball rolling. Once that piece of paper had been found and presented to the authorities. There was no going back.